All right, folks, now that we're 2 minutes after 10, hopefully everyone has made their way over to our webinar. Hello, thanks for joining. I'm Sean Pratt, your friendly marketing manager here at Topia. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items to go over. On the top right of your screen, you should see your GoToWebinar control panel. You can use that to ask any questions, flag if you're having trouble hearing us or seeing the slides, and we'll do our best to remedy any errors that may occur. But also, most importantly, feel free to use the question functionality to ask questions during the webinar. We will leave some dedicated time for Q&A at the end of the session. The session itself should take around 30 to 40 minutes, depending on questions and answers. It will be recorded as well, so you'll have a recording of this available to you within a couple days after we're finished here. So be on the lookout for that probably early next week. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to our presenter today. We have the fabulous Chantel Rowe, who is a head of solutions consulting here at Topia, who's going to take us through this exciting new functionality that we have in our product. Chantel?
Thank you, Sean, and thanks everyone for joining us this morning. As Sean mentioned, we're going to take a look through our new deferred compensation functionality within Topia. And just a quick agenda. So firstly, we're just going to look a little bit about and set the scene as to why this is important. So why did we invest in this solution and finding a solution to what we see as a pretty big market challenge today. We're going to look at what the landscape looks like today and why this is a challenge for companies. And then we're going to take you through what this looks like with our new solution. So firstly, just taking a look at why understanding the cost of mobility is so important. So why do we go through so much effort to get accurate cost estimates and budget accurately? If we look at some of the key messages that are being floated around in the market, we firstly have, for example, Air Inc. studies showing us that 61% of companies are identifying controlling costs as the #1 pressure they get from their business stakeholders when discussing mobility. We have PwC telling us that the number of assignees is expected to rise by 25% by 2020. And even the Harvard Business Review is writing that expatriates are up to 3 times more expensive than local counterparts. So these are the messages around cost of mobility being floated in the market. And then when deferred compensation comes into the mix, we have global regulations like CRD4 in Europe, increasing top rates of tax, which are seeing that increase in the use of deferred compensation by both companies and employees voluntarily. And today we see companies investing considerable time and money in the cost estimate process, whether that be through their providers or through acquiring tools, just trying to manage that expectation and budgeting and work with the business on scenario analysis. But there's often this fundamental piece missing in the process, which is deferred compensation. So what is the challenge with deferred compensation for assignees? We have employees who are granted deferred compensation, which is usually annually, but could be more frequent, leading up to their assignment, who then go on assignment and continue to receive those grants as part of their compensation during the assignment. Now, those grants from before the assignment for work done before the assignment will vest during that assignment. And those granted during the assignment for work done during the assignment will likely vest both during and after the assignment has ended. For each vest, companies need to look at where the employee was working over the vesting period, report and tax that in the relevant country, and manage accruals for that cost across all of these different countries. And when we have those vests continuing up to 10 years post the assignment, this problem can endure far beyond the end of that assignment. And the complexity is really twofold. So firstly, when I'm thinking about assigning an employee, how do I actually understand what the employee has now, what they will be granted under their compensation package, estimate the costs that are going to relate to that assignment period, know when that is going to hit my budgets in the host location, and actually track and update my budget throughout the assignment as things change. And then secondly, when these awards do actually then come to pay out or vest, how do I actually calculate the amount to be declared to the authorities, the tax payments due, and make the instructions to payroll? So the Topia solution we're going to take you through today specifically deals with this first challenge around the estimates and budgeting. And why is this so hard to solve in the estimate process today? So firstly, we see customers struggling with a lack of centralized data. So there's no easy way to see who from the globally mobile population holds awards, in what plans. Sometimes there's no global record of deferred compensation in one system across all my employees. And normally there's no connectivity between my mobility systems and my compensation systems to be able to overlay those two pieces of information. Secondly, there's a lack of tools to manage that complexity. So no estimate tools today that automatically do that grant to vest apportionment calculation, meaning that companies are relying on manual calculations or services from their tax providers that are expensive, slow, and aren't scalable for things like changes in share price, new grants every year, extensions of assignments. Or companies are making broad brush simplifying assumptions, which then are equally leading to inaccuracies in the calculations. And this then leads to an inability to provide businesses, finance teams, tax teams with accurate data, and can lead to those nasty surprises downstream when those costs actually come to hit the budget. So let's look at the scale of the problem we're talking about here. So we took a pretty basic and conservative case. A 3-year assignment, the person gets $25,000 in grants every year, which could be very low when you look at some industries like technology and financial services. And those vest a quarter each year for 4 years. So pretty simple. Here on the right-hand side is the correct cost calculation, showing the amounts of the gain and the tax cost for equalized assignees on these grants and the financial month these are going to appear in for budgeting purposes. You can see that there's really no easy way to land on these figures without doing a detailed calculation, and that actually the majority of that cost is going to hit the business within those 4 years after the assignment has actually ended. So what's the impact of that though? Getting this calculation right not getting the calculation right can have some pretty significant impacts. So some companies will take the position of just not to include deferred compensation. It's very complex, it's costly to manage, so I'm going to leave it out of my estimates for now. For that same example, so the $25,000 of grant per employee per year, over a population of 500 mobile employees, that would see us under accrue for that cost in the host locations across our population by $52 million. Some companies will take the position that they'll just spread it across the assignment. So just equally accrue for an amount every month or every year relating to deferred compensation, rather than putting it in the right and working out what is the right amount in the right financial period. For businesses and finance teams, accruing for a cost in, say, 2018 that doesn't actually hit until 2022 is actually of very little use to me in terms of expectation management and budgeting. And in this example, so the same example we just took, the accruals from the finance perspective, each period would be out by an average of 102% for that period. And across my 500 mobile employees, my business is going to receive $26 million of post-assignment vesting surprises across that population that they're just not expecting. So the Topia solution tackles the end-to-end process of centralizing that data, estimating the costs, tracking the activity, and reconciling or recalculating my budgets as needed, with a particular focus on accuracy, both in terms of the calculation of the gain and the timing of that cost accrual. Speed, so making sure you can get those calculations within just a few minutes. And flexibility, so being able to adjust, recalculate, and keep my numbers accurate throughout the assignment period. So taking you through what the solution looks like. Step one is that we embed your plans into the platform in lookup tables. So all of the grants, the vesting schedules, with all types of plans, so both cash and stock or phantom units, all levels of complexity. So even if you've got monthly vestings or multiple grants per year in a lot of different plans, the details are all in the platform, and that drives the calculations and the automation of all those calculations. Step 2 is to centralize all the employee data. So all of that grant and vest data is centralized against the employee's record in Topia. And this can feed directly from your system, so your HRIS, your compensation system, or even directly the broker systems, depending on their availability for integrations. And those feeds are going to happen first at the initiation of the employee in the system. So we're going to reach out and gather those details as part of creating the employee record. And then as part of regular feeds, so as part of update feeds at new grants, as things vest, etc., to provide one central view of the deferred compensation activity for mobile employees. Then step 3 is that our Topia Plan cost estimate tool takes that information about the employee and all of their grants and vesting information and calculates the full cost of the assignment in just a few minutes, including all of your rates, tables, allowances, vendor costs, and crucially, the deferred compensation plans. It does an automatic grant to vest apportionment of those gains based on the assignment dates and calculates all of the hypothetical taxes and gross ups if that compensation is tax equalized. The estimates are then driven automatically through approval processes, and those processes are configured to your business logic and the rules around this individual case. So for example, if there's a different path of approval to follow, if, for example, the individual's a VIP or an executive, or if that individual is being assigned to a particular country, those processes are followed and that logic is embedded in the system. Step 4 is then to take all those numbers and drive that reporting to finance and tax teams. So we can flexibly report on that for your finance and tax teams. So for example, looking at amounts per employee, per cost center, per entity, per country, however you need to accrue for those, per financial period, and across all of your different plan types. So the reports can be configured on the fly as you need to, so you can incorporate different columns, fields, formats, etc., to make it as easy as possible to take this information and get it into your relevant system. And once you've established the initial calculations, you can recalculate those estimates individually or in bulk at the click of a button, and we'll take you through how easy this is in just a second. So for example, after I've uploaded my new share prices or changes in FX rates, or an assignment has been extended and I need to consider new grant information. This means that not only that your estimates and budgets aren't out of date straight after or just months after you've calculated them. And then although we don't actually calculate the gains or the amounts to be reported at the actual vesting event, what we do have is that as and when those vesting events are happening, you can work with your tax providers, with your compensation teams to calculate those gains, calculate those taxes based off the information in the system. So you can immediately see how many of your mobile employees are in a particular plan at a particular vesting event and know who you need to go through these processes for. And then throughout the assignment, by importing the actual data back into Topia, you can constantly reconcile that budget data or your original estimate data against your actual costs and adjust your accruals very easily. So with that, we're just going to jump into the platform and just do a really quick and easy change to show you how easy it is and quick and easy it is to manage those estimates around deferred compensation. Okay, so here I am in my Topia dashboard, and I'm going to look at one employee in this case, so Lewis Gray. I have all of the information.
Oh, it looks like we're having a little trouble connecting to Chantel. Let's hold on for 1 second and see if we can reconnect her. All right, Chantel, if you can hear me, it looks like your computer is back working now.
Amazing. Sorry, everyone. This is a great lesson as to why to not upgrade your OS the morning before you do a webinar, because all kinds of funky things happen to your computer. Okay, where were we? So we're in our Topia dashboard, and we went into our employee, Lewis Gray. So Lewis Gray is on assignment from Australia to the UK. And as part of that initiation process, I have been initiated with all of his deferred compensation documents. So all of the grants that he has, if we have a look down his documents here, I have his 2015 grants, his 2016 grants, 17 grants, 18 grants, and then predictions for the future years that I'm making based on what I think he's going to be receiving as part of his assignment, as part of his compensation package. So right now I have his cost estimate, but what I'm going to do is actually, you know what? His 2018 grants, those were actually forfeited. He didn't hit his targets for 2018, so we're going to forfeit those. But we do actually now have the 2019 grants. So actually we predicted previously that those were 2,500. He actually ended up getting 2,600 granted. So really easy to make a change or have that information feeding directly from the compensation system. I'm now going to come into his cost estimate, click on his estimate here, and I'm going to hit the recalc button with that new information. And this is just going to take a couple of seconds. So while it's doing that and just recalculating all of those grants of S prorators, we did mention that you can do this recalculation process either individually or in bulk. So we can bulk recalculate cost estimates, for example, as new compensation information comes over from, for example, new grants or new vestings. That information can come over, and then all individuals with those deferred compensation awards can be recalculated in one shot. And we can see here, as well as all of the compensation and benefits that Lewis is going to receive. I now have the updated stock option information here. Those numbers are calculated with reference to the exact grant to vesting pro rata for his assignment, for his location. And then my tax figures here, including my hypothetical taxes and my gross up taxes, are all including that deferred compensation data. And I'm able to immediately come into my reports, go to my cost estimate reports, and I can rerun my deferred compensation accruals or my accruals for a particular location. For example, I'm going to rerun my Singapore accruals for 2019. Those will run in just a couple of seconds, and I can immediately then provide that updated accrual information straight over to my finance team or my tax team with the updated figures. So really easy and quick to manage those calculations, manage changes to the calculations to make sure everything's keeping updated, and then report that information straight back to my teams. So with that, I will hand back over to Sean, and we'll look at whether we've received any questions and go through those.
Great, thanks, Chantel, and thanks everyone for bearing with us during the slight technical hiccup there. It's always fun doing live webinars; those things happen. So just a reminder, if you would like to pick Chantel's brain, she is the expert after all. Please feel free to use the question functionality in the GoToWebinar control panel. We have had a couple of questions come in so far, so we'll just dive right into those. And please, if you have anything, please submit it now. So Chantel, are there types of deferred compensation that the solution doesn't support?
Not that we're aware of. So I'm sure companies out there will have very niche, funky plans that we haven't yet considered. But the way we've designed the solution is to cover all cash and share or unit plans that we generally see out in the market. So everything from kind of LTIPs and deferred cash through to restricted stock units, phantom units, restricted shares, stock options, employee share purchase plans, all of the things we typically saw. And we did validate our solution with a number of our customers and prospects, particularly those over industries where we see quite complicated plans. So things like we spent some time with some investment banks and insurance companies, making sure that we were able to cater for their plans, which is quite an important part of their compensation packages. We spent some time with some leading technology companies who obviously give equity as part of their sometimes monthly compensation, sometimes annual, but making sure that the solution was really robust enough it could stand up to those really complicated arrangements that companies had.
Great, thanks for clarifying that, Chantel. Another question that's come in is, can the solution be used to calculate the final gain, or are you going to go in that direction?
Great question. It's obviously a problem we'd love to tackle. As I know it's still, even though there are some solutions out there, it's still a challenge for companies, both from a cost perspective and from a solution perspective. So currently, we are just targeting that estimate process because there are certain kind of not assumptions, but or maybe assumptions that you can make as part of the estimate process that you can't make when you're actually calculating the final gain to declare to the authorities. So things like, for example, countries that have time apportionment claims, where companies, when they have that final vesting, actually need to have someone look at the individual travel calendar to make that apportionment, because they do get relief for work days outside of the country, for example. So there's a level of complexity that it takes to actually calculate that final gain and report that on a tax return or through payroll that we haven't yet considered in the platform. So we don't currently. We do feed into that process though. So you saw how easy it was to maintain that central repository of data. So when that vesting time does come, I can really easily go and run a report of, say, everybody that has 2017 stock option grants that are going to go through in this month. I can really easily get that information. Where have they been? When did their assignments start and end? Have they been extended, for example? Do they have any specific tax filing positions, as we're centralizing all of that data from the tax provider? Are they on a specific visa type that might see a special treatment? All of those pieces of data that make it so hard to calculate that gain for the employee sit within our system. And then you can use all of that centralized data to help manage the process with your tax provider or whoever's doing those complex calculations for you much more easily, and then obviously track everything back in the system. So you have that record of exactly what was calculated and what was paid in one place as well. But who's to say we won't go there in the near future? It's just an additional level of complexity that that isn't included in the solution today.
Great, thanks, Chantel. Seems like there's always a lot that can be solved with technology. It's just a matter of getting there and prioritizing.
Exactly.
So at this time, we don't have any further questions. So we'll go ahead and wrap up the webinar. I want to thank everyone for joining us, and Chantel, obviously, for taking the time to present and handling that slight technical hiccup in the best possible way. But also, folks, if you'd like to see a deep dive into the deferred compensation functionality as it sits in our Topia Plan product for scenario planning, cost estimation, and what have you, please do let us know. You can reach out to myself, Sean, at topia.com. You can also email us, info@topia.com, if you'd like to see a more robust demo and dive into how the solution could benefit your program. So thanks everyone again for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your morning and afternoon, and we will see you again next time.